Avowed. Is it worth a buy?
No, this game isn't worth a buy. Like, let's just say this game is a 10 out of 10 masterpiece, you know, for example. Like, this game is just amazing in terms of gameplay and story. It still wouldn't be worth buying due to the simple fact that this entire game is literally propaganda, and Matt Hansen, the art director for the game, says he wants to replace all the crusty white dudes in game development, and he actually succeeded in that, believe it or not. Well, in the game Avowed at least, since nearly every NPC that you'll ever encounter in this game is going to be a strong, independent queen. So in this world of Aurora, which is where Avowed is set in, which is like the Pillars of Eternity universe, they have somehow breeded out all the white men from the gene pool by making all the white men gay, of course, you know, how else? So in this world, the whiteys are going the way of the dodo, RIP, you know, all good things must come to an end, I guess. He also had a meltdown over Elon Musk saying, you know, some pretty sane, some pretty rational things about the gaming industry not being racist and sexist towards white guys. The horror of Elon Musk for saying that, I know, lock him up for this blasphemy.
Fuck you, man, real talk.
So yeah, if you have wondered why the art direction is so shit in this game, this is your guy. Also, the game director Carrie Pastel has blue hair. I just thought I should mention that, and I think that kind of just speaks for itself, right? And just like how a wild, venomous, or poisonous blue dart frog in the, you know, deep in the Amazonian jungles and shit showcases its poison and toxicity through its bright colors, so do these modern day lefties. In other words, steer clear of them and their bright hair in the games that they create.
Why am I poisoned? Why am I toxic? What?
So if any of you are wondering what woke means, and a lot of people who watch my Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 stream haven't a fucking clue what woke is, this is what woke is.
So Worthaby is still coping about his Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 meltdown stream and him shilling for that piece of shit game.
My goodness, how many fragile people is it? He lied! Somebody lied! He made a kill!
So now he is basically trying to pull a Musa, saying we're all just ignorant and shit.
Educate yourself a little.
None of us know what the real definition of woke is.
Haven't a fucking clue what woke is.
And we are all just idiots. But yeah, it's pretty funny. Shill is trying to reclaim some of his lost pay piggies through trying to act like he isn't a woke shill, you guys. And Microsoft gave him a review copy, you know, and he's shitting on the game. Oh my god, Worthaby's credibility is restored, everybody. Said nobody ever. But yeah, we won't be shitting on Worthaby anymore in this review for Avowed. Honestly, I'm sure most of you probably haven't even heard of Avowed or even know what it even is, because there's next to no marketing for this game, and let's just be honest, I don't think anybody was hyped for this game. Avowed flopped incredibly hard with only a peak player count of 18k on Steam.
That's what you get. That's what you fucking get, bitch.
Which we already know what the copium from the Xbox shills is going to be, and from all the woke tards trying to defend this game. But dude, you know, that doesn't count the Game Pass players. The game is doing so much better on Goy Pass, you guys. Oh my god, bro, bro, there's like 10 million players on Goy Pass right now, which for one, it obviously isn't doing well on Game Pass. Like, you don't need a PhD in gaming to understand that. And second, even if it was, you know, quote unquote doing good, amazing, or even, you know, phenomenal, that doesn't mean anything since the game is literally free on Game Pass. Microsoft isn't making money when you download the game, you idiot. They already have your money.
Thanks for the money, stupid fuck.
It's also quite sad that this game has a 78% on Steam, which just proves that normies have infiltrated PC gaming and that they have zero standards, like, at all. I do want to also say I think it's borderline criminal that they are charging $20 for these mid-ass skins, which the ones on the top are just recolors, and the ones on the bottom look like something you would find out of the donation bin at a Salvation Army. Like, really? This is the best that they could come up with for $20? I guess you get the game 5 days early though. Wow, I'm so glad I paid a premium just to play a game a few days early, you guys. Oh my god. So let's actually review this game, or do a half-assed one, I guess, since I'm not even gonna lie, I skipped like 95%, if not 99% of the dialogue in this game because it's just so bad. So let's just ask ChatGPT what this story is and have the AI do my work for me. So yeah, pause the video if you want to read all this bullshit, but I don't think anybody really cares about this information. So this game is made made by Obsidian, and let's just say Obsidian has truly fallen far from grace. Like, we all saw the writing on the walls with the Outer Worlds, so should it really surprise anybody that this game is, you know, also not great? But yeah, let's hit play and check out this amazing game full of amazing whamming of color and shit. So after skipping the cinematic, we are introduced to the character creation skin, and it defaults on a fellow Tyrone. As we can see, the majority of the pre-made characters are quite disgusting, to put it lightly, and they have mold growing on their faces, as with coral and other stupid shit nobody would ever want on their face. Like, really though, why would anybody want this on your character? It just looks so dumb and stupid. So after that, you choose your background, which will give you some different or unique dialogue options. You choose your attributes, and then we name our character. Select our pronouns, because this is a modern game, which I must admit seems kind of transphobic and shit, considering the fact that there aren't more pronouns than just, you know, he, she, and they. Like, come on, Microsoft, be a little bit more inclusive to our fellow proud and strong allies out there who identify as cats, toasters, and boxes of Lucky Charms. But they also give you this option to disable the pronoun feature, which I didn't even realize when I streamed it. Like, I read it and it said display identifier. I was like, what the fuck is an identifier? Identifier to what? Then afterwards I realized it was talking about your pronouns, which again seems kind of transphobic. Disabling pronouns, not very inclusive, Microsoft and Obsidian, I'm not gonna lie. You know, that deeply hurts, you know, my feelings and our feelings towards, you know, the ABC allies and shit. You also get to choose your difficulty, and since this is a modern game, it has the journalist baby difficulty called Storytime difficulty. Which I just hate, because whenever games do this shit, you know the gameplay was not the focus of the game. And I've brought this up in my Silent Hill review, but I hate games where you can change the difficulty on the fly, and the only thing that it affects is enemy health and damage scaling. In other words, it's a half-assed difficulty system, and I picked normal. And even playing this game on normal, nearly all the enemies are way too spongy, as with a lot of enemies dealing a large chunk of your health. So I cannot imagine how miserable playing this on Path of the Damned is. I'm guessing every enemy is a mini boss and two-shots you or some bullshit like that. I'd honestly recommend playing the game on easy, and I never pick easy in games, but it makes the combat more enjoyable when you're 2 to 3 shotting enemies instead of needing to hit them 10 plus times to kill a single enemy. So after you finish up making your character, you get this cool cinematic of the LGBT lemur, but unfortunately for all of us, the LGBT lemur steps on like some mold spores and falls to its death. Can we all get some RIPs and Fs in the comments down below for our fallen ally? So he then comes back to life later as a zombie lemur or some shit, I don't know honestly, and we then play the game. We get a cutscene with some boat and we land on the shores next to this blue furry thing, which looks incredibly ugly. As you'll notice, most of the NPCs in this game look absolutely fucking hideous.
Awful, terrible, horrible thing to say. Only immature, really fucked up people would do that. Negative, 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 negative.
Another one of the first things you'll notice when you start playing the game is it's incredibly oversaturated or bright, and legit looks a lot like Dragon Age the pronoun guard. It also just looks very generic in general. Like, the graphics may be decent, but games need just a little bit more than graphics. They need actual good art style as well. And let's just face reality, this game's art style is the definition of ugly. But anyway, shortly later in the tutorial, you'll meet a whammon who, much like in Kingdom Come Deliverance, is only here to humiliate you and make fun of you, as this is obviously a modern game, and it can't be a modern game without whammon humiliating you and showing their superiority over you, the player.
Stay back. I'm not catching whatever's on your head. You mean a god gave you that face? Touched your soul and everything?
Only immature, really fucked up people would do that. Negative, 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 negative.
You'll also level up somewhere around this point and gain your first level, which you can then choose to specialize in one of 3 classes: Fighter, Ranger, and Wizard, which is incredibly basic, but I chose the Wizard and soon regretted that decision, as the Wizard class is absolute dogshit, and even the first spell you learn, which is the Magic Missile, might as well be the Magic Pillow, as it does absolutely no fucking damage at all, and the range is about like 10 feet. Like, what a dogshit spell. Bro, that's gotta be like the most lamest like missile, like spell missile, whatever the fuck that shit's called, like I've ever seen in a game. Like, holy shit, that was weak as hell. honestly, there just isn't too much to talk about for this game. So I'll just go over some of the woke shit and quests, then afterwards talk about the gameplay, which is the only real reason to actually play this game, and unironically is probably the best game Xbox has put out in like the past 5 years or so, which isn't really saying too much, let's just be honest, okay? When all they have been putting out is complete dog shit, despite what shills and Xbox fanboys would like to claim you to believe, such as Fratanga Plays, which I don't know if I can actually say this word on YouTube, but the game unironically has a delete your unborn child quest, and at least some people on the Steam forum board still have dignity and are bringing this to light, and one of them says, why is this game trying to push and delete your unborn child stance? Spoilers, I guess. But anyways, he basically says there's a quest where a character needs you to collect these items in the game for someone, which is basically a drug for deleting your clump of cells, which libtards like to say to devalue human life, and of course all the dialogue options are in favor of it, aside from one. But anyways, one of the replies is from some based chud saying, my body, my rules. What about my body, mommy? You have no say in this. I want to party and have a career and sleep with 50 Tyrones and shit, and have no consequences for my actions. Fuck you, little Timmy. But yeah, the thing is, this game is probably full of all sorts of other leftist bullshit ideology like that, but again, I skipped the majority of the dialogue, so I really don't know, and I don't think anybody really cares to know, because let's just be real, nobody's buying this game to begin with. However, I did also come across this part which I initially skipped and then had to reload my save file because I heard the word contraception after I exited the dialogue, and I was like, what the fuck did he just say?
Next time, I'll choose a less fraught project, like contraception.
Don't tell me they made these two Black KWEENS gay and shit. So I reloaded my save file, and they basically talk about using essence to fix their erectile dysfunction, or I think it's theirs, I have no idea honestly, but they say a bunch of gay shit like from stick to stone, using essence to augment male performance.
Consider this. From stick to stone, using essence to augment male performance.
And you have the option for, I suggest, erecting the future, the burgeoning science of manomancy. Like, what the hell is this gay Reddit writing? Two Tyrones talking about fixing their erectile dysfunction, but according to Redditors, you guys, the game, just isn't woke. Let me alleviate your concern on this one. Disregard anytime someone negatively uses the term woke. It's genuinely only used this way by absolute fucking losers. Then the reply is, this 100%, a person who hates on equality and inclusion of marginalized groups are not worth anybody's time.
Clown. That's right, I'm clown. I'm like, Pennywise the clown. We all float down here.
Which, yeah, to be fair, it's Reddit and the Avowed subreddit, but it's still quite funny. Reddit truly is where all the bottom feeders gather. But yeah, nearly all the NPCs in this game are Black KWEENS, or just women in general, or just, black. Like, look at this, for example. We have our entire family gathering of these beautiful people gathered on a bench, not doing anything or contributing to society at all. Kind of reminds me of real life a little bit, Then we also have the black people being scholars and shit, and they are the ones who own all the research and have the big mansions. I was screenshotting literally every black NPC I came across at one point, but stopped because I realized soon after I started doing that, my entire hard drive would be filled up by the time I even got halfway through the game by the sheer amount of queens in this game. Also, what's really funny is even in the Chinatown districts of the games, we still have black people inhabiting that shit as well. Like, where are all my fellow Asian brothers at? We even have fish people who are black with dreads and shit. I guess, black people in Yasuke built, Chinatown in Japan as well, I guess. I think we're all just uncultured swines who don't know real history. But yeah, the majority of the NPCs in this game are hideous and disgusting to look at, and probably were all randomly generated with either AI or their shitty character creation. Like, even your own party members you get are ugly. You only get a grand total of 4 party members throughout the entire game, which seems incredibly low for an RPG, and you can only take 2 of them with you for a 3-man party. And basically, you have a blue fish man,
and then one day a couple fish had a retard baby, and the retard baby was different, so it got to live.
A dwarf guy, a furry pink cat girl thing, and of course the queen herself, Giata, which I definitely did not just look up because I would never forget our lovely queen's name, which unironically she probably is the best looking party member in this game. Like, she surprisingly is not ugly, and from the little dialogue I have heard from her, isn't a girl boss or stereotypical loud black female. She's actually, you know, kind of attractive. Like, holy shit. Like, she ain't no Sheva by any means, but she's by far the best companion you get in the game looks wise. So everybody give Obsidian a round of applause, you know, just give them all a round of a fucking applause and give, you know, them some credit where it's due. But also, speaking of queens and shit, you should also really consider joining the Latina kingdom by, you know, hitting that subscribe button and that like button and, you know, joining the Latina queen in her dominance of, you know, conquering YouTube and shit. And I, your Latina queen, will never let you down, ever. But anyways, let's get back to the review and shit. Basically, each one of your allies has different abilities and passives you can unlock for them, and you can command them to use their abilities in combat by assigning it to one of the hotbar keybinds. So let's talk about the gameplay now, since that's the only real highlight of the game, which really isn't even that much of a highlight to begin with if we're going to, you know, keep it a $1.62. But unlike what most people would have led you to believe, the game isn't a Skyrim or Oblivion clone. It's a Elder Scrolls Online clone or some other action MMO, which I really don't get why this game doesn't have co-op, as that would actually make sense considering it plays just like a single player MMO. You probably have seen the videos online of the game where Avowed is compared to Oblivion and Skyrim, and how Avowed, it has no interactivity, and yeah, you know, it's kind of true. The game has very little interactivity with literally anything, which I don't think is necessarily a bad thing per se, but it was advertised as a Skyrim clone or whatever, so can you really blame people for being mad that you can't do basic shit like steal, for example, and there's no actual crime system or moral system, meaning you can just take whatever items you see and nothing happens, and there's no like real consequences for anything you do in the game. So let's talk about the actual combat. As I said earlier, I chose a wizard at first, and when I streamed the game, I legitimately did not like the gameplay or combat, as most of the enemies are incredibly bullet spongy in this game, and from what I understand, it uses a similar leveling system as games like Assassin's Creed or Borderlands, as to where if you are below level when you're fighting an enemy, you're basically gonna do no damage at all, which is the most lazy way to do RPG mechanics or make an RPG game, because basically you aren't getting any stronger. The game is only artificially boosting the enemy's attack and health based on the level difference. So it basically just artificially extends the game's length and forces you to do all the side quests, because if you don't, then you will be under leveled and every enemy will take about 5.5 million hits to kill. When I eventually respec'd into a warrior while focusing on a bleed build, as with doing the side quests, is when the game became more enjoyable. As I was finally 1 to 2 shotting enemies, the combat is very similar to Vermintide 2 and just MMOs in general. So if you do enjoy MMO combat with like red circles telling you to move out of the way for the incoming damage, you guys, and like abilities with cooldowns, the game isn't half bad. Like, this game shines the most if you put something on in the background like a YouTube video, or listen to some music and turn off your brain like completely. Like, I think this game is perfect for that, as once you get into the groove of the game and its gameplay loop of exploring large open world area, searching for treasure chests, the platforming and climbing shit to find secret treasures, and doing side quests, the game has its moments of legitimately being fun. Like, this game really feels like a middleware 360 action RPG, just with the added modern day woke bullshit elements. But yeah, the combat isn't super complex or anything. It's your standard action game stuff where you have your light attack, and if you hold down the light attack button, you do a charged attack. Oh my god, bro, you know, there's so much depth into the, you know, the combat system and shit. But yeah, you know, the combat is pretty basic. The problems that I have for the combat, other than the bullet sponge enemies, is also the stamina system. It's just annoying, and I think the game would be better without it, because it just piles on with the bullet sponge enemies, where you hit the enemy about 5 times or whatever, then you need to wait 5 seconds for your stamina to recharge to hit the enemy again 5 times, and then wait another 5 seconds for it to charge again, and it just makes the combat drag on forever, since, you know, the enemies have way too much fucking health. Also, I think the warrior class got the short end of the stick, as you don't get many options for abilities. What you have is a charge attack, which is fun, I'll admit. You charge towards an enemy and send them flying. You know, it's pretty basic. Like, I'm pretty sure every MMO and just, you know, RPG game has this ability. You have the stereotypical taunt where you gain aggro and gain heals while you're doing so, a power stomp which seemed to be worthless, and a grappling hook like ability that I never actually got to use. While wizards, for example, example, have all sorts of spells. Sure, most of them are dog shit and unoriginal and uninspiring, but at least they have a bunch of different options to choose from. The skill trees in general are just very basic. You also get attribute points like might, dexterity, intellect, your standard RPG shit, which gives you the obvious boost that every other game does. I don't really think it's worth going into, detail, since if you played more than one RPG in the last 20 years in your entire fucking life, you'll know exactly how this shit works. Again, it's not a bad thing. One really annoying thing about this game is how you constantly need to eat food to regenerate health and mana, but these diversity hired developers never seem to have thought about adding a simple quick bind to eat food, so you need to pop open your mini menu and select food and then the item you want to eat after every, other battle, or probably multiple times in each battle, because, battles go on for way too fucking long. Also, what's really annoying about the combat is there is always some healer in combat, which typically doesn't stand out very much, so you'll do some damage to a bullet sponge enemy, then all of a sudden he regains all of his health back because some healer who is on the other side is restoring all the monster's health, and they legit heal the monster faster than you can do damage, which I don't think I need to explain why this is so annoying. There's also often either ranged enemies or magic users who are absolute bitches, and they are in out of reach areas where you need to go out of your way to reach those out of reach areas in order to kill them, and if you don't, you're just going to be having some magic spells cast at you the entire battle, or be shot in the back with arrows, which yeah, it's quite annoying. The poison and burn debuffs were also pretty annoying, I'm not gonna lie. The biggest highlight of the game though is by far the exploration and parkouring or platforming, as it really is fun climbing on top of buildings, finding secret treasure chests, and the game does really reward you with materials to upgrade your weapons and other various items like accessories for exploring. You can climb most things in this game, which is pretty cool, and it does kind of break up the monotony of going to X place to kill X number of bears, which I do feel like they were trying to attract the degenerate Baldur's Gate 3 audience with all the bears you fight and shit, but unfortunately for all our furry friends out there with their fursonas and shit, you can only fuck the bears up and not actually fuck them. Truly unfortunate, I know. This game, despite in all of its wokeness and its world where they breeded out all of the whiteys from existence for the brave, and stunning queens and kings, is still somehow nowhere close to being as woke or degenerate as a game like Baldur's Gate 3. But yeah, the platforming and parkour, as with collecting treasures and shekels, is definitely the highlight of the game, as with the combat, being okay. Nothing special or anything, but it's passable. The game also has some cool concepts or ideas, like being able to freeze water to jump on it and get to areas, kind of like in a Zelda game where you'd need to shoot the water with an ice arrow or something. I wish the game had more cool things like this where the magic would really interact with the world, and to be fair, there is a little bit, but it's mostly just shit like, oh, you see those spider webs on the wall over there? They're blocking off the area, so use your fire spell to get rid of them. Or you see that electrical circuit? Shoot your bolts of electricity on it to power on the door. It's really basic shit like that. It may seem like I'm almost entirely shitting on the game, and I kind of am, but I genuinely think the game has some fun aspects and has its moments. And as I've said before, the game feels like a middleware or a AA RPG from the 360 era, but with the woke elements. It's nothing special, but if this game launched at a lower price, let's just say $40 instead of $70, with $90 just to play the game 5 days early, and also obviously didn't have the woke bullshit where every NPC is a stunning and brave queen and shit, then I don't think this game would be getting anywhere near the hate that it is getting. But we have the usual idiots like the art director speedrunning the death of his game before it even launches, because modern day developers can't help but insult their player bases. And yes, I do believe unironically this is probably the best Xbox game in the past 5 or so years, if not more, which again isn't really a high bar to surpass when all you are competing with is dogshit slop like Indiana Jones, and it probably will stay the best Xbox game for years to come when we have woke slop like Fable 4 and Perfect Dark coming out. And when I say best Xbox game, I mean, best Xbox game in the last 5 or so years. So is this game worth your money? No, not really. But if you already have Game Pass for whatever reason, I'd honestly recommend canceling that shit, as it's overpriced and just cheaper in the long run to buy your games. But if you do have Game Pass, then it's worth the download, I'd say. But don't go in expecting an amazing RPG with so many different choices and builds, because the game is pretty basic and kind of bare bones, if we're gonna be honest. The game barely has any choices or dialogue options that actually affect the game in any meaningful way. If I had to rate the game, it's probably like a 6.5, maybe a 7 out of 10 if we're pushing it. It's definitely more fun than Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, that's for sure, but I do think that game is the higher quality game. But yeah, only buy the game on a deep discount, like for $10 or $5 in the bargain bin, if even that, or just ignore it as it does push the message, and honestly, we need to stop supporting games that do this shit. But yeah, you know, that's the end of the review, I guess, you know. Stay based, stay Latina pilled, and yeah, bye.